She asked for help with a broken fence, not expecting much from the quiet, dust-covered cowboy who showed up at her gate. But as days passed and walls came down, he mended something far more fragile, her loneliness. The knock comes just as the sun bleeds orange across the Colorado sky, catching Calamarin with flowers still dusting her hands and doubt heavy in her heart. She's been staring at that broken fence for 3 months now. The same fence that took her husband Samuel when a rotted post gave way and spooked the horses. Through the kitchen window, she can see the damage. Splintered wood hanging like broken promises, wire tangled in knots. Every morning she tells herself she'll fix it. Every evening she finds another excuse to leave it be. The knock comes again, patient but insistent. Calla opens the door to find a man who looks like he's been carved from the very earth itself. Dust covers him from his weathered hat to his worn boots, and his face bears the kind of lines that come from squinting into too many sunsets. But it's his eyes that stop her cold. Tired, yes, but gentle. "Ma'am," he says, touching the brim of his hat. His voice carries the rasp of a man who's forgotten what it's like to talk regularly. "I couldn't help but notice your fence there needs some attention. I'm handy with repairs, and I was wondering if you might spare some water and maybe a place to bed down for the night in exchange for fixing it up properly." Calla's first instinct is to say no. She's been alone on this ranch for 2 years now, and she's learned that strangers, especially men, usually want more than they're willing to give. But there's something about this cowboy that cuts through her defenses. "You got a name?" she asks, crossing her arms but not closing the door. "Ridge," he answers simply, as if that's all the name a man needs in this world. She studies his face, looking for the telltale signs of trouble. The shifty eyes of a man running from something, the cocky smile of one who thinks a woman alone is easy prey. But all she sees is exhaustion and genuine need. "That fence has been broken since spring," she hears herself saying. "What makes you think you can fix what I can't?" Ridge glances past her shoulder toward the damage, then back to her face. "Sometimes it just takes fresh eyes, ma'am, and hands that aren't carrying the weight of what broke it in the first place." The words hit her like a physical blow, so accurate they steal her breath. This stranger has seen right through her carefully constructed walls to the truth she's been avoiding. She can't fix the fence because every time she looks at it, she sees Samuel falling. "Water's from the well around back," she says, stepping aside to let him pass. "Barn's got clean straw if you don't mind sharing space with a temperamental milk cow. Supper's at 6 if you're still here." Ridge nods, understanding more than she said. "Much obliged, ma'am. I'll start on that fence come morning." As she watches him walk toward the barn, Calla realizes something that both terrifies and thrills her. She hasn't had another human being on her property in over 6 months. If you thought this was unexpected, wait until you see what this stranger's presence awakens in her. Calla sets 2 places at the kitchen table for the first time since Samuel died, her hands trembling slightly as she arranges the mismatched plates. The simple act feels both foreign and achingly familiar. When Ridge appears in her doorway at exactly 6 o'clock, hat in hand and dust washed from his face, she's struck by how much younger he looks clean. Maybe 40 with silver threading through dark hair and eyes the color of storm clouds. "Smells like heaven in here," he says, and she realizes she's been cooking for one so long she'd forgotten how good it feels to feed someone who appreciates it. They eat in comfortable silence at first, beef stew and fresh bread, simple food made rich by gratitude. Calla finds herself watching the way Ridge eats, deliberately, as if each bite matters. When he reaches for the bread, his fingers brush hers for just a moment, and she's surprised that she doesn't flinch away. It's been so long since she's been touched by another human being, even accidentally, that she'd forgotten touch didn't always mean pain. "This is the best meal I've had in 6 months," Ridge says quietly, "maybe longer." "Where have you been riding from?" she asks, curiosity overcoming caution. "Here and there, wherever the work is." He pauses. "Been moving since winter. Sometimes a man needs to keep moving until he finds where he's supposed to stop." The words hang between them, heavy with meaning neither is ready to explore. Calla finds herself remembering the last conversation she'd had with Samuel the night before the accident. They'd been arguing about the fence, whether to repair it or replace it entirely. That old fence has been standing since my daddy built this place, Samuel had said, stubborn as always. Good wood doesn't just give up and quit. Wood rots, Sam, she'd argued back. Everything does eventually. Better to build new than to keep patching old wounds? They'd gone to bed angry that night, and by morning, Samuel was dead. You lost someone, Ridge says softly, and it's not a question. Calla looks up, startled. What makes you say that? The way you set the table, like you're feeding a ghost. His voice carries no judgment, only understanding. I know the look. Carried it myself for a while. She wants to ask who he lost, wants to trade sorrow for sorrow. But the words stick in her throat, too big and sharp to speak aloud. Instead, she clears the dishes and tries to ignore the way he carefully folded his napkin. That night, after Ridge has settled in the barn, Calla lies in her bed listening for sounds that aren't there. She finds herself straining to hear proof of his presence. A cough, maybe, or the rustle of hay. She hears nothing, but somehow the silence feels different, less empty, more expectant. Dawn breaks with the sound of hammering, and Calla wakes to find Ridge already at work on the fence. From her bedroom window, she watches him examine each broken board with careful attention. He doesn't just tear away the damaged wood, he salvages what can be saved, straightens bent nails, and makes use of scraps she'd written off as kindling. By the time she's dressed and has coffee brewing, he's already made more progress than she managed in 3 months. You're up early, she calls, carrying 2 steaming mugs across the yard. Ridge accepts the coffee with a grateful nod. Light's the best time for this kind of work. You can see what you're dealing with before the heat makes everything harder. She notices he's organized the repair materials into neat piles. Good wood, salvageable wood, and true waste. There's almost no waste. Where she saw only destruction, he's found possibility. How'd you know which boards could be saved? She asks. Everything's got more life left in it than people think, he says, selecting another board for measurement. Just takes patience and the right kind of pressure. They work together as the morning progresses, Calla handing him boards and holding sections steady while he nails them into place. Their hands brush again and again when he reaches for the same nail, when she steadies a post while he secures it. Each touch is brief, accidental, but she finds herself anticipating them rather than avoiding them. Samuel built this fence the year we married, she finds herself saying, as Ridge measures a replacement slat. 23 years ago, come October, said it would outlast both of us. She laughs, but there's no humor in it. Guess he was half right. Ridge pauses in his work, looking at her with those storm cloud eyes. What happened to him? Freak accident. Post rotted through during a spring storm, gave way when he was checking the horses, spooked them something fierce, and she trails off, unable to say the rest. I'm sorry. The words are simple, but Ridge says them like he means them. Funny thing is, we'd been arguing about this very fence the night before. Calla continues. I wanted to replace the whole thing, said the wood was getting too old to trust. He wanted to keep patching it, said good bones were worth saving. Ridge nods slowly. Maybe you were both right. Sometimes the old bones are worth saving, but they need new support to stay strong. As the day wears on, their conversation flows easier. Calla tells him about the stubborn goat that keeps escaping, about the hawk circling her chicken coop. Ridge shares stories of long trails and difficult crossings, of nights spent under stars so bright they seem close enough to pluck from the sky. For the first time in 2 years, Calla hears herself laugh. Really laugh. The kind that bubbles up from somewhere deep and genuine. It happens when Ridge describes a horse so ornery it refused to cross streams unless the water was moving in exactly the right direction. The sound of her own laughter startles her. She'd forgotten what joy felt like. You talk to the land like it's listening, Ridge says softly as they watch the sun begin its descent toward the horizon. The storm rolls in without warning, the way late summer storms do in Colorado. One moment the sky is clear and endless, the next it's black as midnight and spitting lightning like an angry god. Calla and Ridge barely make it to the barn before the rain starts falling in sheets so thick they can't see the house 50 yards away. We'll wait it out here, Ridge says, settling onto a hay bale with the resignation of a man who's been caught in worse weather. These mountain storms blow through fast. Calla finds herself genuinely trapped with a man for the first time since Samuel died, and the intimacy of the situation makes her nervous. Not afraid, she's past that now, but aware of him in ways she hasn't been aware of anyone in years. Thunder crashes overhead, shaking the barn walls, and Calla's milk cow lows nervously in her stall. Ridge moves to calm the animal, his hands gentle but sure as he strokes her neck and murmurs reassurances. "You're good with animals," Calla observes. "Spent most of my life around them. They're honest in ways people often aren't." He settles back onto the hay, and that's when Calla notices him wince slightly, his hand moving instinctively to his left side. "You hurt?" she asks. Ridge hesitates, then seems to decide there's no point in hiding what she's already seen. He lifts his shirt slightly, revealing a puckered scar about the size of a silver dollar just below his ribs. The wound is old but ugly, the kind that speaks of serious damage and hard healing. What happened? The question is out before she can stop it. "Cattle heist gone wrong," Ridge says simply, letting his shirt fall back into place. "Was trying to help a rancher recover his stolen herd. Got caught in the crossfire when the thieves decided to shoot their way out instead of running." There's more to the story. Calla can see it in the way his jaw tightens, in the way his eyes go distant and hard. But she doesn't push. She's learned that the deepest truths come in their own time. "Must have been bad," she says instead. "Bad enough. Spent 3 weeks thinking I might not make it, and another month learning to ride again." He looks at her directly then, and she sees something raw and honest in his expression. Makes a man think about what matters, lying in bed wondering if you'll ever see another sunrise. Rain drums against the barn roof like 1,000 impatient fingers, and lightning illuminates the space between them in stark, white flashes. "What did you decide?" she asks quietly. "About what matters." Ridge is quiet for so long she thinks he won't answer. Then, "That running from things doesn't make them disappear. Just makes you tired." The words settle between them like stones dropped into still water. Outside, the storm begins to ease, rain gentling from fury to persistence, thunder moving off toward distant mountains. That night, after they've returned to their separate quarters, Calla lies awake listening to sounds from the barn. When she hears what might be quiet weeping, or might just be wind through the loose boards, her heart clenches with an ache she doesn't want to name. The next morning dawns clear and sweet, the air washed clean by the storm. Calla wakes feeling lighter somehow, as if the rain has rinsed away more than just dust and heat. While preparing breakfast, she finds herself humming, an old tune Samuel used to love. After breakfast, while Ridge returns to his work, Calla makes a decision that surprises even her. She climbs to the attic and retrieves the phonograph Samuel bought her for their 10th anniversary, a luxury they could barely afford, but one that had brought them countless evenings of quiet joy. The machine still works, the brass fittings dulled but functional. She selects a record, something slow and sweet, a waltz that used to make Samuel pull her into his arms right there in the kitchen. As the music begins, Calla finds herself swaying slightly, her body remembering movements it hasn't made in years. She's so absorbed in the memories that she doesn't hear Ridge's footsteps until he clears his throat softly from the doorway. "Sorry," he says, starting to back away. "Didn't mean to intrude." "No, it's fine," Calla says quickly, though she can feel heat rising in her cheeks. I haven't played music in a long time." Ridge steps into the kitchen, his hat in his hands, and she notices he's taken extra care with his appearance. His shirt is clean, his hair combed, and there's something almost formal in the way he holds himself. "It's a beautiful song," he says quietly. "Samuel and I used to—" She begins, then stops, unsure how to finish without sounding foolish. "Dance?" Ridge asks gently. Calla nods, suddenly embarrassed. "Right here in the kitchen. Silly, really." Ridge is quiet for a moment, listening to the music. Then, with the careful formality of a man asking permission to cross sacred ground, he says, "Would you, that is, if it wouldn't be inappropriate, would you like to dance?" The question hangs in the air between them like morning mist, delicate and easily scattered. Calla's first instinct is to say no, to protect the memory of dancing with Samuel, to maintain the safe distance she's built around her heart. But something in Ridge's expression, Hope mixed with resignation, as if he expects rejection but had to ask anyway, makes her nod before she can think better of it. He sets his hat carefully on the counter and extends his hand. When she takes it, his fingers are warm and slightly rough from work, different from Samuel's but not wrong, just different. They begin to move together slowly, barely swaying at first, testing the boundaries of this new intimacy. Ridge is a careful dancer, leading gently, never presuming, always giving her space to pull away if she needs to. But she doesn't pull away. Instead, she finds herself stepping closer, allowing him to guide her around the small kitchen, past the stove where supper will soon simmer, past the window where morning light streams golden and forgiving. For those few minutes, she isn't a widow guarding herself against further loss. She's simply Calla, dancing in her kitchen with a man who treats her like something precious. When the song ends, they don't immediately step apart. They stand there, still touching, still breathing the same air, still caught in the spell of unexpected connection. Then reality crashes back like cold water. Calla steps away quickly, her hands flying to her hair. "That's not what this is," she says, her voice sharper than she intends. "I mean, I can't, this isn't." But even as she says the words, she knows they sound hollow. Calla wakes the next morning to silence, a different kind of silence than she's grown accustomed to, deeper and more unsettling. No sounds from the barn, no gentle humming that means Ridge is already at work. Panic rises in her throat as she throws on her robe and rushes outside. The barn is empty except for her milk cow. Ridge's bedroll is gone, his few possessions vanished as if he'd never been there at all. She runs to the fence thinking, maybe he's gone to finish the work. But the repairs are complete, perfect, sturdy, built to last another 20 years. A note is tucked into one of the posts. "Calla, thank you for your kindness. The fence should hold strong now. Take care of yourself." She crumples the note in her fist, anger flooding through her. How dare he leave without a word? How dare he make her care, and then disappear like morning fog? She's halfway back to the house when she spots him. He's at the far edge of her property, working on a section of fence line she'd forgotten existed. Relief hits her so hard her knees nearly buckle, but relief is immediately followed by fury. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" she calls, marching across the pasture with her robe billowing behind her. Ridge looks up from his work, surprise in his expression at her obvious distress. "Thought I'd finish the boundary line before..." "Before what? Before you disappeared without a word." She's close enough now to see the confusion in his eyes. "I woke up and you were gone. Your things, your bedroll, everything." "I wasn't leaving," Ridge says quietly. "I packed up because I thought maybe after yesterday, after what happened between us, you might want me to go." "So you decided for me? You decided what I wanted without asking?" "You're right. I should have asked." "Yes, you should have. And while we're asking questions, maybe you could start by telling me your full name. I've fed you, sheltered you, danced with you, and I don't even know who you really are." Something shifts in Ridge's expression. A door closing, walls going up. "Name's Ridge. That's all you need to know." "Like hell it is." Calla steps closer. "I've been straight with you from the start. I told you about Samuel, about things I haven't talked about in 2 years. The least you can do is trust me with a name." Ridge is quiet for a long moment, his hands clenched at his sides, jaw working like he's chewing on words too bitter to swallow. Finally, he says, "Ridge Danner. And now you know why I don't use it." The name hits her like a physical blow. Even isolated as she's been, she's heard of Ridge Danner, wanted in 3 territories for robbery and murder, a man so dangerous that the reward on his head could buy a decent ranch. "You're," she whispers, taking an involuntary step backward. "I'm not what they say I am," Ridge says desperately. "I didn't rob that bank, didn't kill those people, but I can't prove it." "How do I know you're telling the truth?" "You don't," Ridge says simply. "You have to decide whether to trust what you've seen with your own eyes or what other people say about me." Calla looks at this man, this stranger, this outlaw, this gentle soul who fixed her fence and made her laugh, and realizes she's standing at the edge of a cliff. Whatever choice she makes now will change everything. They come on Wednesday morning, just as Calla is hanging laundry on the line. Three men riding hard with the kind of purpose that turns her blood to ice water. Bounty hunters, their eyes sharp and predatory, hands never far from their weapons. The leader is a thin man with a face like a hatchet and badges pinned to his vest. "Morning, ma'am," he calls. "Deputy Marshal Tom Cleary. We're looking for a fugitive, dangerous man named Ridge Danner. Word is he might have passed through this area." Calla's hand still on the wet sheet, her heart hammering loud. Behind her, she can sense Ridge moving in the barn. "Can't say I've heard that name," she says, proud of how steady her voice sounds. "Bank robbery, murder, cattle rustling. You name it, he's done it." Cleary's smile is all teeth. "Real bad sort, the kind that preys on women living alone." One of the other men, a heavy-set brute, nudges his horse closer. "Heard tell you had a stranger helping with repairs. Tall man, dark hair, keeps to himself." Calla meets his gaze directly. "I hire help when I need it. Most men around here keep to themselves. It's considered polite." "Mind if we take a look around?" Cleary asks, though it's not really a question. Before Calla can answer, Ridge steps out of the barn, hands visible but ready, stance casual but alert. The transformation is startling. Gone is the gentle man who danced with her, replaced by someone harder, more dangerous. "Ma'am," Ridge says, his voice carrying a formality that cuts like ice. "These gentlemen giving you trouble?" Cleary's hand drops to his gun. "Well, well. Ridge Danner, as I live and breathe. You've led us quite a chase, boy." "I imagine I have." Ridge's voice is calm, conversational, but Calla can see the coiled tension in his shoulders. "Though I can't say I've been trying to hide all that hard." "Makes it easier when you're too stupid to keep running," the heavy-set man sneers. "Lot of money on your head, Danner." That's when Calla steps forward, placing herself deliberately between Ridge and the guns pointed in his direction. "He's my employee," she says firmly. "I hired him to fix my fence, and he's done good, honest work. If you want to take him, you'll need to show me a proper warrant." Cleary reaches into his vest and produces a crumpled paper. "Got a federal warrant right here, ma'am." "Then I'm sure the proper authorities will sort it all out," Calla says, not bothering to look at the paper. "But until they do, this man is under my protection on my land." The silence that follows is thick enough to cut with a knife. Three armed men against one woman and an outlaw, with nothing but principle standing between justice and vengeance. Finally, Cleary laughs, a sound like breaking glass. "You've got sand, lady, but you're harboring a fugitive, which makes you an accessory." "You could try," Ridge says quietly, and there's something in his voice that makes all three men shift in their saddles. Cleary reins his horse around, face twisted with frustration. "We'll be back, with more men and less patience." As they ride away, Calla realizes she's shaking, not from fear, but from the adrenaline of choosing her side in a fight she never asked to join. That night, they sit on the porch steps as darkness settles over the ranch like a familiar blanket. The sky is clear and endless, stars scattered across it like salt spilled on black velvet. Calla has wrapped herself in Samuel's old quilt, while Ridge sits a careful distance away, his hands clasped between his knees. "They'll be back," he says finally, breaking the silence. "Probably with more men, better weapons. Cleary's the type who doesn't like being made to look foolish." "Let them come," Calla says, surprising herself with the vehemence in her voice. "This is my land. I decide who's welcome here, and who isn't." Ridge turns to look at her, his expression unreadable in the starlight. "You could have let them take me. Would have been safer for you." "Safety's overrated." The words come out harsher than she intends, born from 2 years of playing it safe and ending up more alone than she ever thought possible. "Besides, I've seen enough of you to know you're not the monster they're painting you to be." "How can you be sure?" Ridge asks quietly. Calla considers this, looking out at the fence he repaired, thinking about the gentle way he calmed her cow during the storm, remembering how carefully he held her while they danced. "Because monsters don't fix broken things," she says finally. "They break them further." Ridge is quiet for a long moment, like a man holding back words that want to spill out. Finally, he begins to speak, his voice low and rough with old pain. "It was 3 years ago, in a town called Millbrook. I was working for a rancher named Harrison. helping move cattle to market. There was a bank robbery the day we brought the herd in. 5 men, well organized, knew exactly when the cattle money would be there. They killed 2 people. You were there? Calla asks. I was at the saloon when we heard the shots. By the time we got to the bank, the robbers were riding out. I recognized one of them, a man named Garrett Webb, someone I'd worked with years before. He saw me too, knew I could identify him. The pieces begin to fall into place in Calla's mind. They blamed you. Webb was smart, had connections, money. He made it look like I was part of the gang, planted evidence in my saddlebags. When the law came looking, my word against his meant nothing. So you ran. I ran. Ridge looks at her directly then, his eyes reflecting starlight and old sorrow. Been running ever since, never staying long enough to put down roots, never getting close enough to anyone to make them a target. The words hang between them, heavy with implication. Calla understands what he's really saying, that by staying here, by letting her defend him, he's put her in danger. I haven't let myself feel anything in years, she says quietly. After Samuel died, I decided it was safer to be alone. But then you showed up, and you made me remember what it feels like to be alive. They sit in silence after that, shoulders brushing, both understanding they've crossed into territory neither expected to explore. You fixed more than the fence, she whispers. They come at dawn, just as the sky begins to blush pink along the mountain ridges. This time there are 6 of them, and Calla can see immediately that these aren't lawmen. They're hired guns, the kind of men who shoot first and worry about justice later. Cleary leads them again, but his badges are gone now, replaced by the hard gleam of a man who's decided that legal niceties are just obstacles between him and a payday. The others spread out around the house, cutting off escape routes. Morning, Mrs. Marin, Cleary calls, his voice carrying false cheer. Hope you've had time to reconsider your position. Calla steps onto the porch, Samuel's old rifle in her hands, loaded and ready. Behind her, Ridge moves to the window, his own weapon gleaming. They've spent the night preparing for this moment. My position hasn't changed, Calla says firmly. This is my land, and you're not welcome on it. One of the new men, a scarred brute with dead eyes, spits into the dirt. Lady's got backbone. Shame we have to break it. Ma'am, I tried to do this legal-like, but you made that impossible, Cleary says. Now we're going to take Danner one way or another. You can step aside or go down with him. I made my choice yesterday, Calla replies, raising the rifle to her shoulder. The standoff stretches for a heartbeat. 6 armed men against 2 people with everything to lose. Then the scarred man reaches for his gun, and the morning explodes into chaos. Calla's first shot takes him in the shoulder, spinning him from his saddle. Ridge's rifle cracks from the window, and another man crumples. The horses scream and rear as bullets whine through the air. Cleary and his remaining men take cover and return fire, wood splintering from the porch posts as Calla dives for safety. A bullet burns across her arm, drawing blood. You hit? Ridge asks, reloading. Just a scratch, Calla lies. That's when they smell smoke. Through the chaos, none of them notice the wounded man crawling toward the barn with a burning brand. By the time they spot him, orange flames are already licking at the dry hay. The barn, Calla cries. Ridge bursts from the house, firing as he runs, drawing the bounty hunter's attention away from the spreading flames. A bullet catches him in the leg, sending him stumbling, but he keeps moving. When Ridge falls, blood spreading across his shirt, Calla doesn't think. She just moves, throwing herself between Ridge and the gun, aimed at his heart just as the trigger pulls. The bullet meant for Ridge catches her in the side instead, spinning her around and dropping her to her knees. In the confusion that follows, burning debris falling like rain, Ridge reaching his backup pistol, the remaining bounty hunters flee rather than face the combination of bullets and fire. As smoke clears, Ridge crawls to where Calla lies bleeding in the dirt, her face pale but determined. You fool woman, he whispers, pressing his hands to her wound. Why did you do that? Because you're worth saving, she whispers back, and because I'd rather die fighting for something I believe in than live safe and empty. 3 weeks later, the new barn stands where the old one burned, its fresh-cut timber gleaming golden in the afternoon sun. Ridge pounds the final nail into the last board, his movement still careful because of the bullet wound, but steady with the satisfaction of work well done. Calla watches from the porch swing, her own wound healing clean. She's wearing a new dress, blue calico that brings out her eyes, and there's color in her cheeks that has nothing to do with the warm weather. The letter came yesterday, carried by a U.S. Marshal named Thompson who rode out from Denver with news that changed everything. Garrett Webb had finally been caught, and under pressure from federal authorities, he'd confessed to framing Ridge for the Millbrook robbery. The charges were dropped, the bounty lifted, the wanted posters recalled. Ridge Danner was a free man. "Funny thing," Calla had said when Thompson finished reading the official pardon. "I never much cared whether he was guilty or innocent. I just knew he was mine." Now, watching Ridge test the barn door's hinges, Calla feels a contentment she thought lost forever. The loneliness that had eaten at her for 2 years is gone, replaced by the quiet joy of shared work, shared meals, shared dreams. Ridge approaches the porch, wiping his hands on a rag, his eyes bright with accomplishment. "Barn's finished," he announces. "Should last you another 20 years, easy." "Us," Calla corrects gently. "Should last us 20 years. Ridge stops at the bottom of the porch steps, his expression suddenly serious. "Calla, I need to ask you something, and I need you to answer honest." Her heart skips a beat. "What is it?" "I'm free now, cleared of all charges, able to go anywhere I want, start fresh wherever takes my fancy." Ridge climbs the steps slowly, never taking his eyes from her face. "The question is, do you want me to stay?" Calla stands, moving to meet him at the top of the steps. The setting sun paints everything gold and rose. "That depends," she says, her voice soft but steady. "Are you asking as a hired hand or as something more?" Ridge reaches into his pocket and pulls out a simple gold band. Nothing fancy, but solid and real and clearly chosen with care. "I'm asking as a man who loves you, who wants to build a life with you, who promises to fix whatever breaks and protect what matters." The ring catches the light as he holds it out to her, and Calla feels tears spring to her eyes. Not tears of sorrow this time, but of joy so pure it threatens to overwhelm her. "Ridge Danner," she says, taking the ring and slipping it onto her finger, where it fits like it was always meant to be there. "I thought you'd never ask." He sweeps her into his arms then, spinning her around on the porch while she laughs with delight. When he sets her down, they're both breathless and grinning. "There's just one condition," Calla says, her arms still wrapped around his neck. "Anything," Ridge promises. "You have to keep dancing with me. In the kitchen, on the porch, wherever the music moves us." "Every day for the rest of our lives," Ridge agrees, and seals the promise with a kiss that tastes like hope and home and second chances. If you thought these were crazy, you won't want to miss what happens in this next video.